I am today the 88-year-old widow of a man of great fame, Henry Lyulph Holland, 1st Earl of Slane, whose brilliant university career was followed by a seat on the cabinet at an astonishingly early age, then an ambassadorial role, and then Viceroy of India. Henry's death has opened a window in my mind, and all kinds of thoughts are drifting through it like birdsong.
I sent the florist away just now. I said tomorrow would be best for the flowers. Too hasty otherwise.
Absolutely, Herbert. It'll be tradesmen and politicians anyway.
I see. When will be appropriate, do you imagine, Carrie?
As Herbert said.
Thank goodness Mother is not one of those clever women.
What do you mean?
Well, I'd say she's being marvellous, wouldn't you, Kay? I'm sure she'll have the good sense to fit in with our plans. Of course, your little apartment means she won't be able to stay with you.
I think she ought to pay rent while she's with us. Naturally, she'd want to.
Father's life of service means that most of his income died with him. Her needs will be modest, and most of what's left can go towards spreading the cost of having her on board, so to speak.
What about Janou?
And we all have staff, and we won't be able to afford to keep Janou just out of habit.
Mother might have something to say about that.
Oh, don't be silly, Kay. Mother knows what's right. Okay, you've spilled tea on your shirt. Oh, and what about her jewels?
Sensible thing is to sell them straight away. They should fetch 7,000 or so.
Edith says she thinks she ought to remain living in this house with Mother.
Well, she can't. High time she looked after herself. This house should be sold and the money divided without more ado.
A knighthood began the blaze of honours that my husband Henry trailed through life like the tail of a comet. And then, in his 90s, he drooped in his chair after dinner, and the accumulation of nearly a century receded abruptly into history. Henry's death has made my children very purposeful. They seem to understand absolutely how my affairs must be put in order. I have never meant to be rude or cruel to them, but it seems to me they've invited foul treatment almost all their lives. As a parent, I should try more. But it is so much effort. There are 6 of them. Herbert is the oldest, at 68 years. Then there's Carrie, Charles, William, Kay, and finally Edith. There are wives, such as Herbert's Mabel, whose neck hangs like an avian crop, and whose hair is the colour of dust. Today, I am clucked over by only 3 of the vultures. I have banned the others for the time being. Herbert is the most severe of the flock, or committee, for that is the collective term for vultures, you know.
Well, that's the plan, you see.
A flock of herons is called a murmuration, and it's an exaltation of larks, and peculiarly a deceit of woodcocks.
Oh, poor old woodcocks.
It's all taken care of, and you don't have to worry, Mother.
That's very kind, Herbert.
Capital. But you need not feel hurried. Mabel and I will expect you at your convenience.
I'm very happy about selling the house, Herbert, but I don't agree with your plan for me.
You don't agree?
What is it you don't agree about?
Well, Carrie, I don't want to live with Herbert, nor with any of you. I'm going to live by myself.
By yourself, Mother?
It's impossible.
I'm going to Hampstead.
Hampstead?
Mother's having a joke.
Are you having a joke, Mother?
There is a house. I've seen it.
But, Mother, I have known your movements every week since you returned from India 15 years ago, and I know for a fact you have not been to Hampstead in all that time.
I went 30 years ago, and I saw a little house that I liked very much.
Awfully sorry.
You're not making sense, Mother.
Then let me explain. It was a convenient little house. Janou could manage it single-handed, I think. And there was a nice garden with peaches against the wall, looking south. It was down to be let when I saw it. In actual fact, I remember the name of the agent.
And what was the name of the agent?
Bucktrout.
Sorry?
Gervase Bucktrout. And you see, that funny name seemed to match that funny little house perfectly.
Well, I think it sounds absolutely delicious. Peaches and buck trout. Well,
Be quiet, Kay. Of course, my dear mother, if you are set on this eccentric scheme...
Will it not look a little odd in the eyes of the world when you have so many devoted children that you should elect to live alone in retirement at Hampstead?
Lots of old ladies live in retirement alone at Hampstead. I expect young people are considered a nuisance up there.
Pardon, my lady. Is it worse to send my lord's shirts to the laundry?
What would you like me to do with your father's things, Herbert? It seems a pity to give them all away. Shall I have them sent over?
But what about Roland and the others?
Well, thank you, Mother.
You know, once they're washed, would you have Lord Slane's clothes and toiletry packed up and sent to my son's house?
Oh, oui, my lady. Mais bien sûr.
Well, we shall see to it that you are never lonely. Though, to be sure, Hampstead is a long way off.
And there are always the great-grandchildren. You'd like to have them coming in and out.
I'm terribly sorry, but I'm going to become completely self-indulgent. I want to be left alone until I issue invitations to my Hampstead Eyrie.
But surely...
There are to be no grandchildren or great-grandchildren at all. I want no one about me except those that are nearer to their death than their birth.
I am lost for words.
I suspected that to be a temporary condition, and imagined her husband would get a torrent of them later. But the deed was done, and it hadn't been nearly as difficult as I'd expected.
I'm so sorry, FitzGeorge.
It simply won't do, Holland, old fellow.
No, indeed. I was meeting with my mother and Herbert. We have to plan for her now, don't you know?
Yeah, I suppose I ought to offer my condolences.
Yes?
Take them as read, I think.
Righto.
You are 18 minutes behind yourself.
Indeed. Have we ordered?
Yes, and I have twice had to send the soup away.
Well, I'm ready now. Wine?
I ordered barley water. Aren't you going to ask me about that astrolabe?
From Afghanistan. You've seen it?
Indeed. 1804, and signed by Ibn Abdallah. It's the real thing. Tempted to buy it myself. I say, Holland, I think perhaps I ought to have been a little more gentle.
About what?
You know.
Papa?
Indeed. Here I am now, in ancient old age, crowded out by pictures and curios, mired in eccentricity. And I suppose one gets out of the habit of imagining other people's feelings.
Really? Please don't worry about it.
The museums are very aware of my age. They yearn to get their hands on my possessions. Will you have dessert?
No, not in this hot weather.
Coffee?
Oh, well, why not?
Have a brandy.
No, thanks.
Waiter, give Mr. Holland a brandy. Put it down on my bill. I don't think I ever mentioned, Holland, that I saw you in your cradle when the 1840 brandy wasn't quite 35 years old.
What? Do you mean to say you were in India, in Calcutta in 1874?
Yes, I was. My guardians didn't approve of universities. They sent me round the world instead. Your parents were very kind to me. Your mother was most gracious, most charming. She was young, very lovely. I remember thinking she was the most lovely thing I had seen in India. But you were wrong about those Chinese bowls, you know, Holland.
What bowls?
You know nothing whatever about porcelain. Never did, never will. It's too fine a taste for you. How's the brandy?
Oh, it hasn't arrived yet.
Do you think, perhaps, someday you might take me to call on Lady Slane?
Mr. Bucktrout?
Lady Slane?
I'm relieved to discover that here we're pretty much on a level with the station. I came by the underground. I confess I was a little nervous. People do so jostle one another.
I am amazed.
Oh, I'm making too much of it. Plenty of people manage the underground without a fuss.
No, you're not at all as I expected.
In what way?
Forgive me, but you're like a girl, dressed up as a lady of years, as if for a play. I imagine if you turned your head smartly, then a cloud of talcum would fly off you.
If this is the way you treat all your clients, then I imagine you must be quite successful in business.
Très bon, milady. It is a pretty little cottage, but it is dirty and many things are broken. Make sure he agree to mend them, and he do not charge us.
Oui, je know.
I hide upstairs while you talk, milady.
Your maid is, quite a character. And she's right. We must be businesslike. It is a nice house, but you know it's so pleasant that I wouldn't care to let it to just anybody. It is my own house, you understand. If I'd been merely the agent, I should have felt it my duty to let it whenever I could, but although I have had many applicants in the last 30 years, I've only liked one couple.
I think this house would probably suit me very well.
Given your years, Lady Slane, as an intelligent person, I'm sure you won't mind me saying this. Even if we were to find the house and yourself incompatible, you won't be tying it up for very long. And one ought also to remember that given the world is due to end in 2 years' time, I probably shouldn't be worrying about all that anyway.
In 2 years' time?
I could convince you of that by the application of a few simple mathematical calculations. If the subject interests you, I could come to tea with you one day, when you are established, and give you my demonstration.
So I am going to be established here, am I?
I think so, yes. It seems likely. Otherwise, why should you have remembered the house for 30 years? Why should I have turned away so many tenants? Of course, if I were only the agent, I should never suggest coming to tea. But being also the owner, I feel that once we have finished all our business, we may meet upon an equal footing.
Indeed, I hope you will come to tea whenever you feel inclined, Mr Bucktrout.
You are very gracious, Lady Slane.
But now, about the house, Mr Bucktrout. I like it, and apparently you approve of me as a tenant. So what about the rent?
The rent, of course. The rent. Well, now, what would you be willing to pay?
£150 a year would seem about right.
No. I was thinking more along the lines of £75 for the year.
£100 and not a penny less.
I see I shall have to give excellent entertainment for my tea times. I agree. And so I think we may both feel somewhat pleased with ourselves.
Good.
There is mending to be done, Lady Slane. But don't worry, I shall pay for the improvements and provide you with the services of an excellent septuagenarian by the name of Mr Gosrin, who I know will execute the work as it ought to be done.
Excellent. Well, it seems we've made an agreement. Now, I have determined to take up painting once again. It is something I left behind many years ago. I would like to make the south-facing bedroom into my studio. The view will give me inspiration, I hope.
Oh, very well, Lady Slane.
The air felt good up there away from the bustle of Kensington. It felt thrilling to know this little house would be mine, to stir with the breeze, to begin what has been so long delayed.
There's something fishy about this. He isn't charging you enough. At that price, I wonder what you should do if the agent gets a better offer and turns you out.
He's a generous man. This agent will never turn me out, Herbert.
But agents are such awful grasping people.
I agree with Carrie. What guarantee do you have that he won't throw you out when the lease finishes in a year's time? Father wouldn't have approved of this, you know.
But he isn't here now. And Mr Bucktrout is not the kind of person to turn me out.
What about the papering and distempering and leaks in the roof?
And what do you really know of such things, Herbert?
Well, of course, as a lady of 88, you have the right to make all choices concerning your future.
Such as it is.
You will forgive my concern, Mother, that you may be setting a course for irretrievable and most terrible muddle.
Mr Bucktrout has promised to arrange for carpentry, painting, plumbing and upholstery, all of which he understands much better than either myself or you, Herbert.
Well, as you appear to have fallen under this man's influence, I can only say that I am relieved that you chose to give away your jewellery before he has a chance to talk you into giving it all to him.
What?
Mabel is very pleased with it.
Mabel!
and we appreciate the way you have favoured us. And so, as you offer yourself and your purse into the hands of this old shark buck-trout, it is only left to me to assure you that Mabel and I remain in waiting to offer you shelter when the whole sorry business capsizes.
You've given your jewellery to Mabel?
Yes, all of it, except the rings on my hands.
Without saying anything to the rest of us? Herbert, how could you take all Mother's things for yourself?
I wouldn't get too upset, Carrie. They aren't the great treasure you'd imagined. As Viceroy, your papa was forever giving various important Indians jewels as presents from the Empire. It was understood that the Viceroy would immediately offer to buy them back, and so bribes changed hands without anyone being too obviously mixed up in anything. Consequently, my dressing table has been loaded down for years with bracelets and necklaces that wouldn't have made it anywhere near the establishments of Hatton Garden.
Is that really true?
If you get fed up with them, you could always give them to the Opera House to use in their productions.
So much for £7,000, Herbert.
In contrast to the baubles I gave away, my fingers bore several rings, none of which were scraps from the table of diplomacy. Looking at them carefully for the first time in years, I was deeply affected by what I saw. Where they had been tight, they were now loose. My fingers had thinned, and the backs of my hands, now liver-spotted, carried veins like parcel string. Oh, these weren't my hands. They were someone else's. When I was 17, I met the handsome young Henry Holland, who initially revealed no trappings to suggest he might become Viceroy of India. 10 years older than myself, he still bore the blush of youth. Early on, Henry showed great interest in my inclination towards painting. Empathy became desire. There was indeed sexual longing for him. And if he'd suggested doing so, then I would have run away and unbuttoned him and let him unbutton me. And I would have given him everything, without regard to propriety. But our meetings were taken as evidence that a match was to be made, and the dead hand of expectation among parents, relatives and friends put paid to eroticism very quickly.
I believe it becomes me to speak a few words, Lady Slane, here on this late summer's day when you are finally able to move into this lovely little Hampstead cottage. I have, as you know, employed Mr Gosheron to take care of the renovations on our behalf.
Indeed. Thank you, Mr Gosheron.
There's an issue of fairness in most enterprises, I believe. And Mr Bucktrout and I agree of such things, and it's a pleasure to do my best.
Here is a man who knows his work. Not too expensive, but not too cheap.
It appears Madame Janot appreciates your work, Mr Gosheron.
Thank you, madam.
Comme j'ai dit, un homme qui connaît son travail. Charmant. We are very lucky, I think.
Why do you take such trouble on my behalf, Mr Bucktrout? This surely is not customary in an agent, even an owner agent.
Let us say that I do it because I have very little else to do, and I am grateful to you for bringing the opportunity.
I've seen enough of the world to know that is not the reason.
The world, Lady Slane, is pitiably horrible. In the world as it is at present, optimism for humanity is a luxury that only poets can afford. I determined that at 65 business, properly speaking, should know me no more. And so on my 66th birthday, I arose a free man.
But what about this house? For 30 years you've refused to let it unless to someone you liked.
This house has always been my one patch of sanity, and I have tried to keep it unspoiled by the furies of raw commerce.
You know, Mr Bucktrout, I believe I have never taken so much pleasure in someone's company in my entire life as I do now.
I am moved, Lady Slane.
My life has hitherto been filled with fear of appearing stupid. I've dreaded that someone might ask the minister's wife, the ambassador's wife, the vicereine, to pass an opinion on matters which utterly confound me, no matter how many times they're explained. But neither yourself nor Mr. Gosherin are even momentarily disturbed by my inability to distinguish a volt from an ampere or a brace from a bit. You simply let it be known without a word said that I should trust you to manage the world around and about me.
Why should you have to know? That's the thing. Why should any of us have to know anything that don't either put food on the table or give us pride by virtue of its own beauty?
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 I can't understand, my lady, how some people can live without beauty. And to think, some people cover up the grain with paint.
You are an education gentleman. You make me believe that by moving to this house, I have entered a better, kinder world than I have known since I was a child. Henry and I had children, yes, but he never once made me feel I'd been unbuttoned. And now, here in my Hampstead cottage, of which I'd dreamed for 30 years, finally I could be me and lift the poor wounded easel of my ambitions, so long put away, back onto its uncertain legs. Oh, how fine it had been to be 17. How fine to live in that state of rapture. And now I felt it flooding back. I felt the burning return, the ecstasy, the exaltation. Drawn tight as a wire, at 17, Deborah Lee had trembled to a touch. She'd been poised as a young god in the integrity of creation, the life of the artist. I'm sorry, Kay. We shall have to pause for a moment.
You're all right, aren't you, Mother?
Oh, yes, but walking uphill to the heath isn't as easy as I'd hoped. And I have to take it bit by bit. Besides, Janou has bundled me up in such a shapeless mass of woolens. I find I get too overheated as I make my way.
She's concerned about you. She wants you to stop sitting out in the garden. Too cold, apparently.
October. It's a shame. The summer went so quickly in anticipation of our moving in.
Do you need the bench?
No. Let me stand here by the cannon post. Just a minute. I'll be fine. At 17, for many months I had lived intensely, secretly, building myself in preparation, though never yet laying brush to canvas. And then, on the threshold, the consummation was snatched from me by life as wife, mother, viceroy. All my life I have burned at the injustice of it all. As men grow older, their sense of taste dies. Unable to enjoy delicate flavours, cigars and anchovy concentrates are required as stimulation. And it is the same in love. They go out into the darkened streets, seeking the company of dark women, savouring the extremities. For women, the ability to enjoy delicacy is not scoured away by drink, brutality and tobacco. And love and desire and sensuality are still bound together in the heart and mind, if not in the marriage bed.
Are you feeling better?
Oh, yes. Don't be alarmed. I just needed to take a breath. Of course, when I was young, I looked forward to the change in the seasons. I liked to watch the colours move from green to brown to grey. Then I noticed it in you children, then in myself. And now I dread the change, as there's nothing to say I'll be alive to see it all come round again. I'm ready. Shall we carry on?
I believe you know my good friend, old FitzGeorge.
Do I?
He met you in India when he was a young man travelling round the world.
In India?
Yes. Apparently you looked after him for a short while. He saw me in my cot, he says.
Oh, it's quite possible, dear, but I don't remember the name. Oh, so many people came, you see. Could you put him off, do you think, Kay? I don't want to be rude, but somehow I seem to have lost my taste for strangers.
Is there some mystery here, Mother?
Pardon?
Oh, never mind. It wasn't important.
I was on the heath 2 days ago. It was very beautiful. Brown trees in the blue distance. Little boys were flying kites. I wish I'd run more.
What do you mean?
Well, like those little boys. You know, I really was very young when I married. Sometimes I'd wake up in the morning and all I'd want to do is run. Run with my arms flung out, feeling the wind. But of course you can't do that when your husband is in the diplomatic corps.
No, I should say not.
Would you, Kay? Is that what you'd say?
Oh, Mother, I understand you less and less these days, since Father died.
Well, in the meantime, perhaps I understand myself more and more.
What do you mean, Mother?
I am more intimately aware of my teeth, for example, than at any time previously in my life.
What a funny thing to say.
I mean, I know where they are weak. I know which side to chew my food, dependent on how firm the texture is. I remember my young mouth full of shiny, healthy teeth. Now, suddenly, they hurt. What happened in the meantime is, to use your word of earlier, a mystery.
Well, I thought you didn't hear me.
Pardon? Speak up, Kay. I can't quite hear you. You will by now have realized that I was concerned by the idea of a meeting with Mr FitzGeorge. I wanted it, and I didn't. As it happens, Mr FitzGeorge was of sterner stuff. Having waited in vain for Kay to bring him to Hampstead, finally he decided to take the bit between his yellow teeth. He travelled on the underground just like me, and walked to my house and paused before its door, admiring its Georgian dignity. Ever the collector. It is now half a year since my eminent husband, Lord Henry Slane, passed away. Here, in the autumn of 1931, I'm at last comfortable in my small cottage in Hampstead. I am looked after by two very eccentric, cantankerous, but always adorable old gentlemen, Mr Bucktrout, my landlord, and Mr Gosheron, his handyman.
Monsieur Bucktrout is a man of education. Monsieur Gaucheron is a philosopher. His intelligence comes from experience.
If one listens closely, one can discern the odd rustling noise that accompanies all Janou's movements in the winter months. As a child, 70 years ago, she was brought up in rural France, and as protection from the cold, they were all smeared with animal fat and plastered with butcher's paper. Whenever we'd returned from hot climes to the chill of England, Janou never failed to swaddle herself with dripping and paper.
Monsieur Bucktrout says the world will end next year. Well, it's a bit mad, n'est-ce pas? But it is a charming madness.
I agreed with Janou. I'm not at all discouraged by Mr Bucktrout's conviction, principally because his mathematical explanation of this event strikes me as delightful balderdash.
Monsieur Gaucheron has installed the paints and brushes in your studio. When will you use them, milady?
I didn't need Janou to remind me. Although I never put brush to canvas, at 17 I was convinced this was my destiny. Now, in the closing scene of my life, I am determined finally to take the plunge. But I am nervous, frightened to start. How do you do, Mr FitzGeorge? I'm sorry to have kept you waiting.
How do you do, Lady Slane?
Please do sit down.
Oh.
I'm sure Janou will be here with the tea in a moment. Now then, my son Kay has mentioned you.
You and I met in India, in Calcutta, as a matter of fact, in the early 70s.
Really? Did we?
And I was grateful for that meeting.
I'm glad we're of assistance. And what brings you all the way up here to see me today? Is this something to do with writing an account of my husband's life?
No, on the contrary. Lady Slane, my field of interest is certainly not your husband. Ah, please, let me help you.
Oh, thank you, sir. It is better and better, milady. Mr FitzGeorge, this is a true aristocrat. It is agréable to see you surrounded by des gentilshommes.
Would you mind pouring, Mr FitzGeorge?
Glad to.
If it isn't my husband who interests you, then why are you here?
Because of you, the Viceroy. It is you who touched my imagination half a century ago.
Really? Why?
I appeared at Government House with letters of introduction and was straight away invited to dinner. If I may say so, I believe I acquitted myself very well socially by keeping my responses simple and avoiding evasion. You see, I was a nameless young man to whom an unknown father had left a large fortune, with the wish that I should travel around the world.
Oh, I see. And who looked after you?
My maintenance was in the hands of solicitors. Half the treasures of my famous collection today, Lady Slane, I owe to that journey around the world 60 years ago.
I'm afraid I've never heard of your famous collection.
Ah, I am delighted you haven't heard of it, or seemingly of me. Nearly as delighted as I was to discover that you, like your son Kay, have no taste.
You know, it is really the most incredible thing. For the last 60 years, I think I've never been told off about a single thing. Now, at this late stage, I seem to be surrounded by old fellows who are more than happy to correct me. Remarkable.
But I am being too harsh. Armchairs and chintz, very fine for a cottage like this, I think.
Heavens! Approval?
Lady Slane, my collection is, I suppose, at least twice as valuable as that of the Astors, and twice as famous. Although I may add, I have paid 100th part of its present value for it.
How interesting.
And you know, one of the most interesting things about the collector is the horror of memory when it applies to something precious that was within reach, or at least seemed to be so, and which was snatched away, apparently forever.
You have no parents, then?
No, and it is precisely their absence that prevents me from joining the great English game of family and society.
You are rich, you preserve a great collection, and yet you do not play the game. How refreshing you sound. But are you real?
I remember you laughed at me in Calcutta. I hear it in my mind as the laugh of a thief who darts away through the dense crowd of the Casbah, having snatched a beautiful item from under my nose.
I don't know what to say.
Lady Slane, have you not yet noticed that youthful memories sharpen with advancing age?
Yes. I understand.
Did you understand in Calcutta?
Ah, now I see what you want.
Why don't you tell me what it is that I want?
You believe something passed between us in Calcutta, don't you?
Yes.
Whether it did or it didn't, we were young and silly. Life offers many beautiful, foolish moments. They are to be cherished, but not acted upon.
We are in our 80s, and yet fascination hovers, still coiled like a cobra between us.
We occasionally meet people who only have to glance into our eyes to set up a vibration. For in that glance is recognition of a kindred spirit. You see, I do understand, Mr FitzGeorge, but I'm afraid you've answered my question. For you are not real. For you are playing the part of a man pretending to a woman that she still retains her youth.
Have you forgotten the days when men looked at you with admiration in their eyes? Something did happen, did it not? Something you have buried. But I remember because it spoiled me for life.
I'm going to ask you to leave now.
May I come again?
I believe what you say, that these matters are important to you. And in the light of this, I shall not forbid you to visit me.
I shall go. But I shall leave my hat in error in order that I might return. I bought it because it looks like the hat of an adventurer, and so perhaps this is where it ought to be. Goodbye.
I shall tell Janou that when you return, you are to be admitted to recover your hat. The broken puzzle began to shake itself into shape. I had known since Kay first mentioned Mr FitzGeorge that he'd played a part in my past, but my mind rebelled and memory refused to recognize him. When I lay in bed that night, I reached into the corners of memory as if delving in a muddied pool. The distant past was otherwise clearer these days, and yet on Mr FitzGeorge I was a blank. Was this the beginning of the madness of the old, nature's way of easing us out of this life? Sitting here in front of the fire with FitzGeorge, shards of a memory in which he played a part did begin to ease themselves together. We were visiting the mother of pearl mosque at Fatehpur Sikri. My husband had invited FitzGeorge to come with us, not expecting him to say yes. But FitzGeorge was a confident young man who took an invitation at face value and came after all. The Viceroy was pointing with his stick and ordering that the ringed doves should be cleared away from under the eaves.
I think it is a pity the ringed doves should be condemned.
Why is that, Mr FitzGeorge?
If a city is abandoned by men, why shouldn't the doves inherit it? Leave it alone, I'd say. Deserted by men, wouldn't it be something to see a tiger going up the Akbar's steps? Or cobra, neatly coiled in the council chamber?
Why are you looking at me like that?
Don't you know?
I think you are forgetting who we are, Mr FitzGeorge.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make you angry.
Nonsense, Mr FitzGeorge. Nonsense. How could I have forgotten that look? It was more than a look. It was a point around which one's life might turn. Deliberately, he held my eyes and filled them with all the implications we would never dare to speak. I felt as if I was utterly naked before him. It was the moment I might have had with Henry when we just met. It was the unbuttoning for which I'd yearned.
You've remembered, haven't you?
Yes.
It was a queer time, wasn't it? I believed you were frightened of me.
I was frightened of myself, not you.
I'd never fallen in love with a woman before, and never have since I fell in love with you at Fatehpur Sikri. It took me away from the course of my life.
You have offended my loyalty to Henry and disturbed the peace of old age. But I confess, you have pleased me more than you've shocked me.
There is more to remember about India, don't you think?
No, there is nothing more to remember. We've remembered it all.
What would you have done with your life, Lady Slane, had you not married that very delightful and disconcerting charlatan?
Charlatan, Mr FitzGeorge?
You will admit, surely, that he was too good to be true.
I should have been a painter.
Ah, thank you. That gives me the key. So you were an artist, were you? Now I understand. I remember looking at you and thinking, that is a woman whose heart's broken.
My dear Mr FitzGeorge, you really mustn't talk as though my life has been a tragedy. I had nothing to complain about, nothing.
Nothing matters to an artist except the fulfillment of his gift. Your children, your husband, your splendor were nothing but obstacles that kept you from yourself.
I assure you that if I did wrong, I paid for it. But you mustn't blame my husband.
He killed you, that's all. Men do kill women. Most women seem to enjoy being killed. And now, are you angry with me?
No. It's rather a relief to have heard these things, all of them.
This is, I suppose, the conversation we should have had in India when your husband wasn't in residence.
A conversation interrupted by 50 years.
You think now, finally, we can become friends?
How sad that you were too wise to announce your love and force me to reject you. And yet so unwise that you've remained faithful for 50 years. But this isn't rational.
My life has been an eccentric shrine to you, and if I had to live it again, I don't imagine I would do anything differently. Tell me about your painting.
Oh, there's nothing to tell. Oh, heavens. I want to laugh and cry all together. But no more. Let's just watch the fire together. Please, sit still and don't say any more. Not for a while. Mr FitzGeorge soon established a pattern in our conversation. It was almost always about the same thing. The minute dissection of moments between us that had occurred nearly 60 years ago. Moments I'd utterly forgotten, because my memory had simply obliterated an encounter which had the power to ruin so much. I found myself exasperated and dreadfully fascinated with him when I heard the words...
Do you remember that day when I came back for luncheon? I arrived rather early and found you alone. Not quite alone, though. Kay was with you.
Kay? But surely Kay wasn't born then.
He was 2 months old. He was in his crib. You were rather embarrassed at being found with your baby by a strange young man. But you got over your embarrassment at once. I remember admiring the simplicity of your manners. You invited me to look at him. You held back the curtain of his crib, and for your sake I glanced at the horrid little object. But what I really looked at was your hand holding back the curtain. It was as white as the muslin. You know, I once told Kay that I had seen him in his cradle. That startled him, I can tell you, but I gave him no explanation. To this day, he doesn't know the details, unless he asked you.
Yes, he did. But I pretended not to hear him.
Because you hadn't really forgotten me.
No, I had quite forgotten you. But perhaps the little voice was warning me, even if I didn't know why.
There are some things one never forgets. I was going to say that I remember the twisted feeling it gave me to have stumbled into your intimacy.
Are you fond of Kay?
Well, I'm used to him. Yes, I suppose you might say I was fond. We understand each other well enough.
I had lost the ability to feel fondness until quite recently. And then moving here and leaving my family in Kensington, I've discovered it again.
Are you fond of me?
I think so. Almost. But you're such an unusual fellow. Noble and spoiled, like fruit left in the sun. Mr FitzGeorge was in a febrile, excited state. I could tell he was savouring these memories, eking them out, saving a little for each encounter. In his retelling of the moment he discovered me with Kay, he'd left out an important part of the jigsaw. And it wasn't until his next visit that he presented it as a gift to both of us.
You were sitting in the middle of the floor, surrounded by beautiful blooms which you were sorting and clipping in readiness for display. You were shiny with perspiration. Your hair was becoming undressed as locks dropped across your face. You looked up and recognized me and pushed a lock of hair off your face with the back of your hand, and as you looked at me, I saw you wrestle to draw the mask of the Viceroy across what I'd seen. And you said...
Oh, Mr FitzGeorge, do forgive me. I had no idea it was so late.
It seems ages since we dined together. Have you been unwell?
No, Kay, not particularly.
The wintertime makes me very nervous. These terrible yellow smogs. I enjoy the short walk here, but I wouldn't venture further afield this time of year.
Indeed, you make an interesting figure, all buttoned up and swathed in scarves.
Fatigue, then?
Really, Kay, I think you imagine me shuffling about in a dressing gown and slippers among the disorder of my incomparable works of art, dissolving a soup tablet for my supper over the gas ring, economizing the electric light so that one bulb illuminates my treasures. Or perhaps not even going that far, perhaps making do with a candle in a bottle.
I was wondering if you're getting enough to eat.
Does my appetite appear diminished? How do I look?
Pardon?
Spruce and well-groomed, or grimy from my cave of corruption?
Well, spruce and well-groomed, I'd say. I confess you're well turned out and actually more lively than usual, and conclude there's nothing wrong with you. Now, will you stop punishing me for looking after your interests?
In short, my dear Kay, if I haven't been here dining with you, then you will have to conclude I have found somewhere more interesting to go.
I suppose I must.
Do you enjoy the way I tease you?
I suppose I do.
I didn't hear you.
I suppose I do.
Ah.
You asked about visiting my mother, but you haven't mentioned it again. I'm glad.
Why is that?
Well, I feel she benefits from quiet, from being left alone with her maid and her landlord. I think she's past the time for adventures.
Adventures?
Meeting new people.
But I'm not a new person.
Well, you know what I mean. I'm relieved, anyway, that you lost that ambition. I feel sure I would have had to have deflected you somehow, and that wouldn't have been nice.
I agree with you, Kay. It was best to let go of that ambition.
Would you like to explain, sir, what brought you here?
I dined with him frequently.
Does anything look out of place to you?
I've never been here previously. I used the same club, and it was there that I heard what had happened. I thought I ought to come and pay my respects.
And you do recognise the body?
That's old FitzGeorge. He looks the same, but different.
That's death for you. Same container, but nothing in it. The blood drains and the face loses shape. And the utter stillness is a surprise. Not to us, of course, we're used to it. I don't think there's much to worry about. Half-eaten boiled egg and a slice of toast. Looks like he was having his supper, walked away from it, and lay down on the bed. Perhaps he wasn't feeling well.
I'm surprised.
Oh? What by it?
That smoking cap. I mean, he was vain, but not flamboyant. It looks Turkish.
Ah, but this was his castle, wasn't it? He could dress up as whoever he liked in here. He's got a lot of old rubbish, hasn't he? There any relatives who could come and clear out the place? Take it away for safekeeping or throw it out?
There are no relatives I'm aware of. The Victoria and Albert Museum might be able to tell you something more about him.
The Victoria and Albert? Hardly the usual repository for information concerning the family history of a bachelor off Russell Square.
He was a renowned collector. The museum has been keeping an eye on him for many years. They'd be keen to know where all this is going after his death.
I can't believe that, frankly. When we see this sort of thing all the time, people get obsessed and hoard things. All kinds of things.
That's not what we have here, Inspector. There are many objects of very great value. Historical items worth many thousands of pounds. I noticed as I came through that Donatello is currently sharing the bath with Ming and Leonardo.
Dirty man, was he?
These things are of great value.
Well, you wouldn't have guessed it, would you? Why would a man with thousands in the bank make supper out of a boiled egg?
Not thousands, Inspector. Millions.
You're not serious.
There are photographers gathering in the street.
Let me see. What are they doing here?
His name is being called by the sellers of the news on the Standard.
Really? Blow me down.
Inspector, there may shortly be a man arriving from the Victoria and Albert called Mr Foljambe. There's sure to be a will. Don't let the museums, any of them, start carting things away until the will has been proved.
I've got it here, sir. It's not much to look at. A page torn out of a notebook. Sorry bit of a thing, really. It was propped up between two naked ladies next door.
The will is written on half a sheet of paper, but it's perfectly lucid, perfectly in order, duly witnessed, and leaves no loophole for other interpretation.
It's amazing, isn't
I'd
it?
say it's very worrying, Kay. What on earth does it mean?
What will it do to Mother's reputation?
And Father's, for that matter.
He didn't have a family. He'd already made a will leaving his money to charity, and the collection was to be divided between the Victoria and Albert, the National and the Tate. I can't imagine why he changed it at the last minute.
And it's watertight, is it, Herbert?
Oh, yes. Everything. The collection and £6 million all go to Mother. The will states very clearly that she is under no obligation to surrender it to any institution or individual. It's all hers.
Well, it's all very strange and confusing. But my God, it's going to make a big difference to all our lives, don't you think?
How did she know this man, FitzGeorge?
I didn't introduce them, and I never heard her mention his name before. He'd just asked about her over dinner. They'd met once in India, nearly 60 years ago.
You weren't involved in some kind of plot, were you?
I don't know what you mean.
When you were his friend, maybe he saw you as some sort of protégé. Was there a plan for you to get his money? Was there some tax issue that meant it was better for Mother to be given it, and then she'd pass it on to you?
No, of course not.
You've always been a bit of a dark horse. You're the only one of us that Mother allowed to visit her in that damned Hampstead cottage. For all we know, she could be about to leave everything to you, Kay.
Up until now, she's never had anything to leave. There's no plot, I assure you. I'm quite upset that you think so badly of me. It's a mystery, pure and simple.
Heaven knows what she might do with all that money. Has she said anything?
Not to me.
No, nor me. In fact, she doesn't seem to be very interested in it. I found her reading a book while Janou fed a cat in the corner of the room. Mind you, I don't believe she was really reading it, because when I asked her the title, just trying to make conversation, you know, she couldn't tell me.
And what explanation did she give you?
She had met FitzGeorge in India, and he had recently been to call on her once or twice. Mind you, when she said FitzGeorge had been to call on her, Janou picked up her apron and began to sniff into it, from which, I assume, he'd always given her a tip.
And what about Mother? Did she seem upset?
She was, quite. She kept trying to change the subject. She seemed to want me to keep me out of it, to keep me at arm's length.
But what would Mother want to be secretive about at her age? I say. No, it's not possible.
What isn't?
Well, a very strange idea has just struck me. None of us knew of Mother's friendship with this old man, this old FitzGeorge. Now it turns out that she knew him in India just around the time that you were born. Perhaps before. And he always took an interest in you, didn't he? Then he dies, leaving everything to Mother, not to you. But that's no reason why she shouldn't pass it on to you in turn. Perhaps he always meant for you to have it. Perhaps you are his heir. But he couldn't give the money straight to you for fear of scandal.
Because?
Exactly. Because.
Oh, now look here. I don't look anything like FitzGeorge. I have Father's nose and his earlobes. I think we should kick that idea out straight away, if you don't mind.
Even if you want his son, there might still have been an indiscretion.
Don't be ridiculous. Mother loved Father. She would never have deceived him.
Oh, you're just so naive, Kay.
Poor Father. For the first time, I feel glad that he's no longer alive.
Yes, poor Father. It's a blessing that he never knew.
She could barely bring herself to look at me. In fact, I don't think she did. I'm convinced she has no intention of giving me any of that money.
Obviously, if she did give it to you, you would share it around the family.
It must have been the shock of losing Father. She's like a child. For all we know, she might do something stupid and hand over the entire collection to the nation.
You don't really believe that, Carrie?
I do believe it. Mother has merely wandered through her life without having to bother with reality. At any moment she may do something that will make one wring one's hands in despair. We are powerless.
I think she might be reasoned with.
Look at all that nonsense about moving to Hampstead. Cloud Cuckoo Land. That's Mother's natural home.
And what about buck trout?
I'm at my wit's end. I know I sound selfish and unkind, but it's Mother who makes me feel this way. It's her fault. Buck trout wouldn't be above inducing her to make the entire fortune over to him. What's to be done?
You see, Jeannot, Mr FitzGeorge couldn't have known what he was doing. What did he imagine I could do with so much money?
Milady, you could do something very good for your family with this money. You could make your family much happier, milady.
But I don't think they deserve it. Then Jeannot launched into a very shocking speech. She explained she was the 12th child of poor parents. They could not afford her, and she was sent to live with farmers near Poitiers, to sleep on straw in a barn, never to see her parents, to know that her brothers and sisters were growing up as strangers.
But they are my family. I would die for them. Oh. This is your family.
I had known Jeannot since she was a young woman. Seeing that distress made me realize I'd always regarded her as a kind of pet. Now, suddenly, I saw her as a human being, and part of me was ashamed, although not ashamed enough.
May I come in?
Yes, of course.
I could hear Jeannot crying in the kitchen as I entered.
She thinks I should do some good to my family with this money I've been given.
But you don't agree?
I don't want to feel obliged, not to anything. I never wanted anything for myself but to be allowed to stand aside, to be left alone.
You moved here in order to take up painting and to use your garden and the heath as your subjects, but you haven't even taken up a pencil.
Do you want me to say I'm not capable of it? Do you want me to confess it was a delusion that has lasted all my life?
Well, you have said that your identity as an artist was stolen by your marriage, your children, by your role in society. Is that true or not? I feel this question deserves an answer, as you are in danger of doing something cruel.
That money is tainted. He desired me, and this bequest is his way of taking ownership of my life. He knew what he was doing, and he's testing me. He's saying it's up to me to prove I have nobility by rejecting these awful treasures.
Well, I think you may be right that Mr FitzGeorge has used his money as a way of invading your life, but that money is now beyond his control. And you could do anything with it.
I am going to get rid of it. What business is all this of yours, or of my children's, or of Jeannot's? I shall have control over my life, even if it's nearly over. I'll let the nation's museums have the works of art, and I'll give the money to the hospitals. I have made my decision, and I shall not be moved.
I have heard you talk carelessly about your children who do not seem to occupy a place in your heart in the usual way. Really and truly, mightn't it do you and your children and their offspring some good to be in funds as a result of Mr FitzGeorge's generosity? Please delay making any decision about the money and the pictures.
I didn't take Mr. Bucktrout's advice. I gave it all away, all of it. It was an act of absolute independence. The ripples of my action were fantastic and intoxicating. I was greatly admired in the daily newspapers and the illustrated weeklies, which found pictures of me as a young viceroy, invariably on a horse, and posted them alongside adulation for my great benefaction to society. Then it all disappeared, very quickly. Mr. Bucktrout was strangely absent, and Jeannot avoided my gaze and was silent for several days. When finally I asked her what was wrong, she just looked me straight in the eye and said,
"Blood, milady, blood."
Of course it was clear what she meant, that she believed I had sinned against my children. She brightened up after getting that off her chest, mainly, I assume, because I was now thrown into despair. What had my children, my grandchildren, and my great-grandchildren done to deserve my petty revenge? except suffer the accident of being born. I had allowed Mr FitzGeorge's lifelong obsession with me, his loss of human sympathy for anyone's pain but his own, to diminish me too.
Morning, Lady Slane.
Good morning, Mr Goshrin. I need you to do a job for me.
If I can, of course.
My great-grandchildren seem to me to be quite industrious and rather dashing in an agreeable sort of way. I would like to know more about what they're up to. Do you know about cuttings agencies?
No, I'm afraid not.
They're people who will watch the newspapers and magazines, for one, cutting out and delivering articles and whatnot on a chosen subject.
How fascinating.
I'd like you to find one and open an account.
What is your chosen subject?
My great-grandchildren.
Very well. I shall look into it and tell you how I got on tomorrow. Mr Bucktrout showed me a picture in the newspaper of your son Herbert's granddaughter, Deborah, dressed as Mary, Queen of Scots at a fancy dress ball. It was something special, I can tell you.
Very good, Mr Goshrin. Very fine. Why had I done this? Well, to be truthful, I was overtaken by a desire to apologize. I couldn't do so to my own children, because it felt as if there was no tide of love dammed up that might be released by a reconciliation. It was too late. As the months rolled by, my spying via the medium of print caused me to think and revealed new themes. I saw expressions of my own and Henry's on the face of various grandchildren and even great-grandchildren, and a diabolical thought entered my head. If my children are like they are, then to what degree do they hold up a glass in which I see myself? And indeed, are their faults not mine? How cruel it is, then, to punish them for being, at least in part, me.
Milady, ici votre great-granddaughter, Miss Deborah Holland.
Great-grandmama. Hello, I'm so sorry for just appearing like this, uninvited. I hope you don't mind me coming to visit.
No, of course not. Oh, my dear Deborah, how very pretty you are. Janou, would you make us some tea?
Oui, milady. Quelle belle surprise.
It's so fine to see you, great-grandmama. It's been so long. And I suppose I've grown up since we last met.
Indeed. What good fortune has brought you here?
Oh, great-grandmama, I don't know where to begin. I don't know if I'm being terribly silly, but I thought of you, and you seem to be the right person. But perhaps it isn't fair to bother you.
You must explain. Bring your stool closer.
I think I've run away from home.
Don't you know?
Well, I left this morning, and now it's getting dark, and no one knows where I am. Yes, I have run away, and it's a really terrible situation.
Why did you choose to come to me?
You must be very wise, I think, and used to weighing an issue. Well, I came to you because, as we all know, you keep yourself apart from the atmospheres that always seem to flow round Grandfather and his brothers and sisters. I thought you might be the one to tell me if I'm mad or not.
I shall try. Please, just tell me what's the matter. Tell me clearly, and try not to leave out anything important.
All right, I'll try.
How unexpected, and yet so perfect was this encounter. This child, this Deborah, this projection of myself, was firm and certain as she spoke.
I'm engaged to be married, and it's a terrible mistake. My fiancé will be broken-hearted if I call it off, and Grandfather will probably die of shame. I'm being a silly, selfish little fool. But it's the rest of my life at stake, great-grandmama. The whole of the rest of my life is in peril. I drifted into the engagement to please Grandfather. But What I really want to do is to become a musician.
Can you really play?
Oh yes, great-grandmama. I play the piano and the cello, and my teachers think I'm very good.
I see. So we're discussing something that's real.
Yes, of course. Why wouldn't it be?
Oh, never mind. And as she described her dream, I felt her head against my knee, and the tears rose in my eyes, as if this were the filial moment of which I'd starved myself all my days.
A chord of music gives me more satisfaction than a prayer. Among the people I really like, I find something hard and concentrated in the middle of them. A sort of stone of honesty, as though they were determined at all costs to be true to the things that they think really matter. I want to be a musician, great-grandmama. I want to play, and I don't want to get married in a way that will obscure all that.
Then, of course, that's what you must do. Oh, dear. You know, I didn't think of this. I really am very ashamed.
What about?
I did a silly thing just because I could. I made all sorts of excuses to myself. You know, young people think their elders will become wise just because age has caught up with them. But it just isn't true. And if I hadn't given away Mr FitzGeorge's fortune, I'd be able to help you by making you independent of everyone.
Oh, don't worry. It's advice I want, not money.
My advice is to go to your father. And if he won't support you, then go to my son Herbert. Say quite simply, you intend to be a musician. You're not going to get married yet. And if they won't support you, then you'll come and live here with me.
I don't know if I'm brave enough.
You're braver than I ever was. Your father loves you, as does his father. I think there's a good chance they won't be silly enough to reject you. It's a different time now. The constraints of the past cannot be allowed to endure. We talked on. I listened to the shape of Deborah's speech more than its content. She told me that she kept a photo of me. It was a picture of me on a horse in India, in which my head was apparently thrown back in laughter. And she told me how often she thought I was the woman she wanted to be. I don't remember anything after that. I drifted off to sleep. And I suppose Deborah made a quiet exit, striving not to disturb me.
Milady, are you asleep? Milady, what would you like for your supper? Oh, mon Dieu, Milady, elle est morte.
All Passion Spent by Vita Sackville-West was adapted by Jonathan Holloway. Honor Blackman was Lady Slane and Alec McCowen, Mr FitzGeorge. Other members of the cast were John Nicholas, Phyllida Nash, Patrick Romer, Paul Nicholson, Peter Ellis, Sonia Elliman, Russell Bolter and Annabel Scully. All Passion Spent was produced and directed by Sarah Davis.